Cao Cao Part 3. Yuan Shang fell ill after his defeat and passed away in the year 202. With no appointed successor, an internal feud broke out in the Yuan clan when they divided into two factions. One group sided with the younger and more favoured Yuan Shang, and the others went with Yuan Tan in Qing province. Cao used this chance to attack under the advice of Xiongnu, who insisted not to turn your back on the recently defeated enemy. Yuan Tan led his men to Liyang, the frontier against Cao, and Yuan Shan sent Peng to assist his brother, but his main task was actually to spy on him. When Yuan Tan asked for more reinforcements, he was refused, so in anger he killed Peng. The animosity between the two brothers was quickly getting out of hand. Cao's biography highlights Li Dian and Chen Yu's successes in securing a water supply route, which they then used to carry out a successful attack against Liyang. Alternate accounts suggest that the operation may not have gone as smoothly as Cao's biography depicts. Yuan Shang left Shen Pi to guard Yi, whilst he reinforced Liyang. The brothers successfully held their defensive positions from attack. When they left their post, Cao attacked them and drove them into the city of Liyang. Whilst he was preparing to lay siege to the city, the brothers escaped north, which caused a major setback for Cao. He needed to gather more supplies if he wanted to continue his campaign, and so collected grains from the granaries in Wei Commandery. When he was ready to attack again, Guo had dissuaded him and suggested it's best to attack Liu Biao to the south and wait for things to change in the north. If they do, Guo believed the whole affair could be settled in a single battle. Yuan Tan then asked for more reinforcements and equipment from Yuan Shang to pursue Cao Cao, but he was denied both. Yuan Tan soon became furious when he heard people gossiping and slandering him, and so he attacked Shen Pi in Yi City. After the defeat at Guandu, Liu Bei fled south to join Liu Biao. Biao tried to dissuade the Yuan brothers from fighting one another, trying to convince them all to attack Cao together, but the Yuans didn't listen to him. Under Guo suggestion, Cao countered Liu Bei's maneuver by attacking him. This led to the Battle of Bo Wang Po. Zhe Dun, Li Dian, and Yu Jin led the armies, but Dun fell into a trap and had to be saved by Li Dian. Around the same time, Cao had returned to Xuchang after 9 months away in the north. During his stay here, he demoted and punished officers who had failed him, to show that he upheld his belief that rewards should not be granted to those who don't deserve them. Yuan Tan was defeated when he attacked Yi and forced to flee to Qing province, but here he was betrayed by his own troops. He fled to Ping Yuan, where he begged Cao for help as he became besieged by Yuan Shang. He sent his ambassador, Xin Pi, to go and see Cao, who was currently engaged in combat on the border against Liu Biao. Turns out Xin Pi was disillusioned by his lord and highlighted that now's a good time to eliminate the Yuans. Cao agreed with this assessment, as Xiongnu had recently said the same thing. Cao then recruited Xin Pi. Cao then brokered an alliance with Yuan Tan through marriage. He then led his forces from Liyang to attack the city of Yi in the year 204. During the siege, Cao was mindful of the logistical problems from before. He constructed waterworks to ease the transport of supplies and prepared to surround the city. Yuan Shang decided to attack Yuan Tan again, which raised many eyebrows within his ranks. Some defenders wanted to surrender over to Cao at this point, but their plan was foiled by Shen Pi, who maintained order within the city. When the Wei army was at the city gates, Cao headed to Bing province to cut off Yuan Shang's supply route, whilst Cao Hong was left to oversee the attack on Yi. After Cao's successful attack, he bypassed Yi and attacked Handan just north of it. This victory then caused many local magistrates to defect over to Cao. Zhang Yan and his Heishan bandits also offered their assistance to Cao at this time. When he returned to the siege at Yi in the 5th month, he learned that Shen Pi had been vigorously defending it. Another turncoat opened a sally port for the Wei troops, but Shen Pi discovered it and ordered boulders to be dropped into the opening, which trapped and killed around 300 men. Cao then opted to dig out trenches and flooded the city. It's said that by the beginning of autumn, more than half the city had died of starvation. Yuan Shang then decided to head back to assist at the city of Yi. Li Fu was sent ahead to notify the defenders that assistance was coming. He broke his staff of authority, only took 3 horsemen with him and travelled at night to avoid detection. He pretended to be a disciplinary officer. He then wandered through Cao's ranks, assessing the sentries and pointing out their faults. In this way, he was able to hide in plain sight, and then he made his way to Cao's main camp. He arrested the appropriate officers in his way and then made a dash for the city walls. The defenders had noticed this and began to sound the drums in celebration. When he reached the wall, the defenders hoisted him up by a rope. When Cao discovered how his men had been outsmarted, he found the whole ordeal very impressive and laughed. Having learned that Yuan Shang was on his way, with Yuan Tan presumably hot on his heels, it made many soldiers fearful of his arrival, as military doctrine states that Yuan Shang's army would fight more fiercely in such a dire situation. Cao announced that if Shang arrives from the main road, a battle must be avoided, but if he arrives from the northwestern hills, then his army would be easier to deal with, as Gaogan's territory would be behind him. Much to his pleasure, Yuan Shang arrived from the western hills, where Cao remarked, "I already have Ji province. Do you know? You shall see soon." Shang set up his camp nearby and communicated for a joint attack with the defenders by using fire signals. When Shen Pi led his men to meet his ally, they were both pressed and defeated by Wei forces. The Wei troops then continued to encircle them, but before it was complete, Chen was sent to discuss terms of surrender. They were rejected though, and Cao continued to attack Yuan Shang, who eventually fled to Zhongshan Commandery. After this defeat, Yuan Shang's baggages, seals, and other insignia were commandeered by Cao Cao's men. Shen Pi boosted his troops' morale with the hopes that Yuan Tan would arrive to assist them, and that Yuan Shang's defeat was irrelevant. As the siege dragged on, Cao was shot at and narrowly missed on one occasion by crossbow fire. Eventually, Shen Pi's nephew Shen Rong betrayed them and opened the city gates. As Cao's soldiers breached the city, Shen Pi's family were executed by Shen Pi, who deemed them all traitors. He then joined his soldiers on the front line at the city gates. They fought bravely, but were pushed back into the city streets. Two separate accounts claim that when all was lost, Shen Pi hid in a well. But Pei Xiongji, who compiled the separate accounts, rejects their claims. He says whatever the circumstance, Shen Pi was captured alive, and the siege finally ended after dragging out for more than half a year. When the battle was over, Shen Pi argued with those that had surrendered, and defied Cao Cao's authority until the end. He cursed the crossbow bolts for not hitting him, and then asked Cao if he could face north before being executed, as it was the direction of his lord Yuan Shang. With Yi now under his control, Cao went to visit Yuan Shao's tomb. He gave his condolences to the Yuan family, and then gave them all pensions. Cao Pi also took Yuan Shi's wife, Lady Zhen, as his own, in what was considered a seriously distasteful act by many at the time. Cao also allowed troops from Bing province to settle in Yi, which kept Gaogan pacified. These newly acquired territories didn't have to pay tax for a year, as Cao wanted to rebuild the country after the three-pronged war that ravaged the land. This earned him widespread popularity in the area, and he was able to recruit many of Yuan Shao's old subordinates. During this time, Yuan Tan had arrived and defeated Yuan Shang, and then forced him to flee to Yuan Shi in Yu province. Tan began capturing territories that used to belong to his brother. So Cao used his late arrival as an excuse to declare him as a traitor. He cancelled the marriage arrangements, and then defeated and killed him in the battle at Nanpi in the year 204. Yuan Tan had asked for help from the Wuhuan tribes, so Cao sent an unnamed envoy to their leader. That envoy displayed an impressive show of force at their court, which dissuaded them from sending help to Yuan. When the armies clashed, there were massive casualties on both sides. Cao looked to call for a truce, but Tao Shun, the head of his tiger and leopard cavalry, dissuaded him when he said, "Now we have trod after our enemies for 1,000 miles. If we go back without victory, we shall certainly lose face. Also, our enemy is isolated. We are a long way into enemy territory, and it will be difficult to keep this position for long. When they win, they grow vain. When we lose, we grow fearful. Using fear to fend against vanity, we shall surely be victorious." Cao personally beat the drums as he led the attack. Yuan Tan became dismounted in the fighting and was caught by Tao Shun's men. He pleaded for his life. "Spare me, and I can make you wealthy." It's recorded that he was beheaded before he finished speaking. After Nanpi was captured, Li Fu became the new registrar of Ji province. He advised Cao not to sack the city, and was then sent by him to inform the officials that business should be carried out as usual. Yuan Tan's family were not given the same treatment as Yuan Shao's, and they were all executed. After this victory, Zhang Yun fully submitted to Cao Cao as he continued to expand his power and influence. Many local officials still refused to surrender and held out in rebellion. Cao praised their loyalty, which managed to pacify some of them. Ji and Xing provinces soon fell under his control as he began to enact his policies. Guo Jia advised to invite the local gentry to join a new administration, whilst also focusing on suppressing private feuds and vendettas. Excessive funerals, over-extravagant tombs, and monuments were all banned from taking place. Over the years, Yi and Wei Commandery became the heart of Cao Cao's power. He initiated several works here, including the Bronze Bird Terrace and the Xuanwu Pond where he trained his navy. He was enfeoffed as the Duke of Wei, named after Yi's commandery, and the name stuck throughout the Wei dynasty. One source claims that Yi was regarded as the northern capital throughout the Tao Wei state. Yuan Shang had fled further north to his brother Yuan Shi. Their influence fell and they had to deal with uprisings. Wang Song saw their downfall and overthrew them in Jiao Commandery. He then proclaimed himself as its inspector and led many officials to surrender over to Tao. Yuan Shang and Yuan Shi then fled to the Wuhuan tribes for help. They agreed and began to raid Tao's border territories. In response, Tao led a daring campaign beyond China's borders in the hopes of destroying the Yuan clan for good in what's known as the Battle of White Wolf Mountain. Tao's risky campaign against the Wuhuan tribes in 207 defeated them so badly they eventually lost importance, then became absorbed into the Xianbei tribes. During Yuan Shao's time, he had allied with the Wuhuan chieftain Ta Dun against Gongsun Zan. Ta Dun was treated especially well, and many Wuhuan chieftains were married into the Yuan clan. Ta Dun was poised to unite the Xianbei, Xiongnu, and Wuhuan tribes, then declare hegemony over them. When the Yuan Brothers arrived to join him, it said their numbers were over 300,000 strong. Their raids had led to the capture of 100,000 Chinese families, which angered Tao to the point that he wanted to completely remove them as a threat. Dong Zhao was tasked with digging 2 canals in order to transport supplies to the north, although the causes of them are not known and have been a subject of several conflicting interpretations. Whilst the canals were being dug, some generals tried to dissuade Tao from the campaign. Yuan Shang is an enemy in flight. The barbarians are selfish and have no feeling of affection for him, so why should they support him? If we advance deep into their territory, Liu Bei will certainly persuade Liu Biao to raid the capital. Should they make trouble there, you will have no chance for second thoughts. Guozhi had disagreed, and urged for a swift attack which he backed up with 3 points. To take advantage of the bandits' false sense of security would catch them off guard and lead to their defeat. As they are stationed far from the Chinese heartlands, their delusions lead them to believe that they will not come under attack. Secondly, if Tao ignores them, they will certainly cause trouble and the new northern territory will all be lost. And finally, he had insights that Liu Biao would not be convinced by Liu Bei, as the latter was more competent. Liu Biao would be fearful to appoint Bei to an important post, so at the same time he would be reluctant to serve under Biao. Tao agreed, and left in the summer of 207 for Yijing, where he made his base. He continued on and received the surrender of a local leader. The obvious route to take was through some coastline plains. The monsoon season arrived which flooded the area and muddied the roads, making it impassable, so for a while Tao's army was stuck and could not march on. Tian Shu was familiar with the area and had had run-ins with the Wuhuan before. He knew of some old Han roads to the far northern reaches where they could circle round and attack Ta Dun where he least expects it. Tao then had signs placed on the flooded road that read, "It's the middle of summer and the road is impassable. We are waiting for autumn or winter to resume the advance." The enemy scouts saw the signs and believed them. When they reported this back to Ta Dun, he lowered the Wuhuan tribe's defences massively, as they were convinced no army could get to them. Guozhi's advice in his campaign that swiftness is the key in war later became a Chinese idiom. He advised to Cao that the army's baggage should be left behind and that he should lead them in a forced march with the lighter troops to take the enemy by surprise. Guozhi highlighted that the cumbersome armour not only slows the troops down, but also alerts the enemy to their presence. Cao took this advice to heart and assigned Tian Shu to lead the way. This assault by the light force has been called one of Cao Cao's most remarkable military adventures in his entire career. They climbed the hills of Shuwu, exited the Chinese frontiers through Lulong Pass into the upper valley of Luan River. They then had to travel 155 miles through difficult terrain and turn east at Pinggang. The expedition force crossed the grazing fields of the Xianbei and re-entered the mountain ranges that acted as a natural border into Han lands. From this direction, Cao had flanked Ta Dun's position and was advancing on a line to the sea which would divide the enemy territory into 2. The expedition force reached the valley of Darling River when Ta Dun realized what was happening. He rallied tens of thousands of soldiers, 2 supreme rulers of the Wuhuan people, Yuan Shang and Yuan Shi, and met the invading force at White Wolf Mountain. Both armies were shaken. The light troops were cautious because they had no baggage and were outnumbered. The Wuhuan were disorganized though and would not fall into formation, nor did they harass Cao's army as they marched into position. Cao climbed upon a hill, and once he had noticed their disorganization, he immediately called for his troops to attack. Zhang Liao led the offensive, where he defeated the enemy cavalry unit with his light force. Tao Xun's troops captured Tadun within a very short time. Many of his men were killed, and the battle was suddenly over. Over 200,000 Chinese settlers and Wuhuan tribesmen surrendered over to Cao Cao. Yuan Shang and Yuan Shi, on the other hand, fled with some Wuhuan leaders to Gongsun Khan, who enjoyed his distant relationship with the Han Imperial court. Cao made his way to Liaodong and took a wait-and-see approach as he didn't want them all uniting against him. One of the Wei generals wanted Cao to attack as he claimed he could make Kang send him the Yuan brothers' heads. Cao believed that if he left them to their devices they would eventually quarrel. After only a few days, a meeting was held between the Yuans and Kang. Yuan Shang plotted to kill Gongsun Kang, but as he acted first, he then sent their heads to Cao Cao. The Wuhuan leaders were also not spared by Gongsun Khan and were all decapitated. With the Yuans out of the way and the coldness of winter setting in, the armies withdrew from the area. Food shortage and drought took its toll on the soldiers. Many succumbed to the elements, including Guru Jia and Zhang Xiu. When Cao got back to Xuchang, he complimented and rewarded those that had advised against the campaign. He understood now how much danger he had put himself in, and acknowledged that he had been blessed by fortune. Cao greatly grieved over the loss of Guru Jia on the campaign. He was reminded of his genius when he learned that Liu Bei did try to convince Liu Biao to attack, and just like Guru Jia had predicted, Liu Biao did not seize the opportunity. Late in 207, some Wuhuan leaders arrived to pledge themselves to Cao Cao. They had not shared the sentiment of Tadun's ill-fated resistance, and were brought into the realm en masse. Their horsemen became known as the finest cavalry force in the empire. From this point on, only 2 minor Wuhuan revolts broke out. Other than that, they stopped posing a threat throughout Cao Cao's remaining years. The Wuhuan tribes, on the other hand, suffered greatly. They became scattered, and their identity was soon to be lost. Many refugees relocated west of Liaodong and with the Xianbei. Due to their great decline after the Battle of White Wolf Mountain, they soon ceased to be viewed as an independent people in the eyes of many. Cao Cao's domination over northern China was now unchallenged, and he could focus entirely on Liu Biao in the south. His prestige hit a new high, as in the next year in 208 he took the role of Imperial Chancellor. He then marched south in September with a hastily assembled army to take advantage of the succession dispute in Jing province. Liu Biao had passed away. His youngest son, Liu Zhong, was chosen to be an heir, with his eldest son, Liu Qi, challenging him for the title. At the same time, Sun Quan was attacking the eastern territories of Jing. Liu Bei also looked to usurp Jing province for himself, and so the often regarded peaceful area was about to be thrown into chaos. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.